Okay guys, the dead stop or cheat rows. So it's a great exercise for developing ballistic power, and it's actually relatively advanced. I don't tend to implement this unless you've got a little bit of familiarity within the deadlift itself. Basically what you're going to do is assume your deadlift position. Now, I actually, from a coaching standpoint, recommend that people take a slightly wider grip on the deadlift than they normally would. Couple of different reasons for this. Number one, it tends to maximize the activation of the upper back a little bit more, okay, at least from a concentric component rather than just focusing on keeping stable within the deadlift. It also mitigates any negative transfer from the dead stop towards the from this cheat row into your normal deadlift. So if you perform it in exactly the same way, then chances are you might actually get a little bit of this new technique carrying over to your deadlift. You want the strength and neurological adaptations, but you don't necessarily want the position that you move within, so we don't want to start to see you bending your arms on the deadlift. Having said that, what you want to do is assume a similar position to your deadlift. Like I said, slightly wider grip, always double overhand, and then from here, you're going to break the weight off the ground in the deadlift position, still keeping a neutral spine or whatever structural position that is solid for you, still focusing on keeping intra-abdominal pressure. Then when the bar reaches about knee height, okay, and you would normally focus on driving your hips through, I want you to shrug the weight and drive your elbows back as ballistic as possible. So be aggressive with this movement, be powerful. The focus should be slamming the weight up as high as you possibly can. With this movement, you will be going relatively heavy, but the focus should always be utilizing your upper back, not your arms, okay? So if you're unfamiliar with how to activate your scapula effectively within a bent over row variation, do not do this exercise, even if it is written on your program, because a lot of people over rely on the use of their arms within a bent over row because the weight will be heavy, okay? And because it will be modeled off your deadlift max as opposed to your bent over row max, you don't want to do this with an arm dominant strategy, because simply put, there'll be too much strain placed on your bicep. You want to focus on keeping the activation in your upper back. There's actual minimal movement and minimal activation of the bicep in the variation I'm doing here. I'm literally focusing on generating power with my lower body. As soon as it gets to the knees, I'm slamming my elbows and my scapula backwards, okay, and the weight is naturally driving up in towards my body. Again, this is a ballistic exercise. It just allows us to maximize that little bit of aggression within the movement. Also find it to decrease neurological inhibition within the deadlift for people that tend to slow down around knee height. Sometimes results in a hitch, sometimes it results in a failed rep. This actually allows the body to get used to being a bit more aggressive within that phase of the movement without always relying on hammering the deadlift volume. In terms of lowering the weight to the ground, obviously again it's a concentric biased movement, as is most variations of the deadlift unless specified otherwise, and because we're focusing on generating power, you don't want too much eccentric loading. That is a separate exercise, okay? So you just want to ballistically drive the weight up towards your stomach and it midriff, and then let the weight go back down to the ground, and again focus on generating power in the subsequent rep.